Welcome back to the Two-Way Report. In the wake of the Bruin decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, which unequivocally stated that any may-issue carry permit schemes were unconstitutional, it was also declared that American citizens had an absolute right to carry a concealed firearm for self-defense in public. Despite this ruling, a third state has recently decided to disregard the U.S. Constitution and defy the authority of the highest court in the land by passing laws that effectively prohibit the exercise of Second Amendment rights within its borders. As such, it is important to bring attention to this issue and raise awareness of the potential consequences of such actions. A couple days ago, while the Two-Way Report team was scouring the interwebs of pro-Second Amendment topics we can report on, we found ourselves exploring the political landscape of different states, particularly Florida, which we have come to conclude is a real bastion of freedom in America. However, we were interrupted by some troubling news from Maryland, where two bills have recently passed through the legislature and are expected to be signed by the governor. The bills in question are SB 1 in the Senate and HB 824 in the House. It is worth noting that these bills, like those in two other states, have been deemed unconstitutional due to their direct defiance of the United States Supreme Court. These actions represent a flagrant violation of the Constitution, and it is concerning to see such actions being taken in the face of judicial precedent. As such, it is important to raise awareness of these developments and their potential impact on the rights of citizens. So, what the hell is HB 824? Well, it's a bill that amends 4 sections of Maryland Code of Public Safety. To be specific, 1. It adds new sections to Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5133B, prohibiting possession of a handgun by individuals on supervised probation for certain crimes, those convicted of DUI or violating protective orders, and those who violate storage provisions or have a child use a loaded firearm causing death or injury. It also imposes a 5-year ban on regulated firearm possession for anyone convicted of violating Section 4104 and bans firearm possession for individuals with mental disorders or subject to a civil protective order. 2. It proposes to raise the fees for wear and carry permit applications, renewals, and modifications in Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5304. It also limits the issuance of permits to individuals aged 21 or older, with some exceptions for military personnel, and prohibits permits for those on supervised probation or with certain convictions, including DUI and domestic violence. Additionally, the bill bars permits for 5 years for anyone convicted of violating Section 4104. 3. It includes charges to Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5306, mandating that wear and carry permit training includes live fire shooting, handgun safety, and shooting proficiency. It also requires instructions on Maryland's self-defense law, including justifiable force, proportional force, and conflict resolution. The bill eliminates the good and substantial reason requirement in Section 5306, subsections A-6-2. Additionally, the legislation modifies Maryland Code Public Safety 5309, reducing the renewal period for permits from 3 years to 2 years. And lastly, it modifies Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5310, requiring the state police to revoke permits if holders no longer qualify, and mandating regular review of permit holders using criminal justice information. The state police may also revoke permits for violating Section 5308. Changes to appeal procedures for permit denials are outlined in Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5311, with added reporting requirements for the State Police and Office of Administrative Appeals in Maryland Code Public Safety Section 5312. So, essentially, what Maryland has done is it decided to follow in the footsteps of other gun-restrictive states by attempting to infringe on citizens' rights and waste taxpayers' money, as evidenced by 2 bills currently under consideration. As I mentioned earlier, HB 824 seeks to raise the fees for an initial issue permit from $75 to $125, which may disproportionately affect those who cannot afford the higher fee. As a result, it may be worth reaching out to the governor's office to express opposition to these measures. These are challenging times, and with the growing difficulty of daily life, it is concerning to see an increase in government-required training hours for the right to bear arms. The training hours required have been raised to 16 hours, which includes live fire training. Furthermore, renewals of permits will cost more, with the renewal fee rising to $75 and an additional 8 hours of training required every time one renews their permit. Such bureaucratic measures are unnecessary and burdensome for individuals seeking to exercise their rights. It is incredibly stupid that law-abiding citizens are burdened with expensive and time-consuming training requirements and permit fees, as this does not deter criminals from obtaining firearms or committing crimes. Criminals are unlikely to go through the legal process of obtaining a permit or paying a fee, rendering such measures ineffective. Additionally, the foundation upon which these measures are being built is flawed and lacks sound reasoning. Ultimately, such measures are illogical and do not serve the intended purpose of reducing crime. In a nutshell, the HB 824's requirements show a clear disregard for our Second Amendment rights, which makes it unconstitutional. Laws aimed at discouraging the exercise of constitutional rights are tantamount to being unconstitutional. The government cannot suppress the right to suppress possible adverse secondary effects stemming from the exercise of a constitutional right. Any attempt to do so is indirectly unconstitutional. The more requirements the state adds to the permitting process, the more likely it is that it will be successfully challenged. This bill adds more discretion to the permitting process, which goes against the Supreme Court's Bruin decision. The second bill, S1, is an alarming development for gun owners in Maryland, as it seeks to effectively ban carry permits and make it illegal to carry firearms. Previously, Maryland was a may-issue state with strict permit requirements, but following the Bruin decision, the state changed its laws to allow some individuals to obtain permits. However, SB 1 would render these permits worthless by making publicly accessible buildings and places gun-free zones, despite the fact that such areas are statistically more likely to be targeted in mass shootings. This measure is counterproductive and could potentially make individuals more vulnerable to attacks. This proposal is obviously driven by political motivations rather than rational considerations, as it could serve to create a target-rich environment that is more conducive to mass shootings. It is important to examine the underlying rationale behind such proposals and prioritize public safety over political agendas. It is concerning that SB 1 would make a vast array of public locations and buildings gun-free zones, thereby effectively limiting the ability of individuals to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Furthermore, it is noteworthy that property owners are unable to grant permission to carry firearms in certain buildings and places even if they expressly desire to do so. Specifically, schools, healthcare buildings, government buildings, power plants, alcohol or marijuana retail establishments, stadiums, museums, amusement parks, racetracks, and casinos would be off limits to firearms. All are gun-free zones, regardless of the property owner's intentions. Such measures effectively restrict the freedoms of Americans and may be perceived as being in conflict with the spirit of the Constitution. It is essential to examine the implications of such proposals and to carefully consider the potential consequences for public safety and individual liberties. Maryland's proposed measures to restrict gun rights are reminiscent of similar measures taken in New York and New Jersey, where judges have ruled that such restrictions are unconstitutional and violate key Supreme Court decisions such as Bruin and Heller. Although there were some preliminary injunctions, the Second Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals became involved, leading to the Supreme Court ultimately issuing a ruling criticizing the Second Circuit for its handling of the situation. The issue at hand is a contentious one, as the right to bear arms is a fundamental aspect of American freedom and liberties. It is critical to consider the implications of any proposals that may serve to infringe upon these rights and to ensure that any measures taken are in line with the constitutional law. It boggles the mind how stupid Maryland lawmakers are. They're basically following in New York's and New Jersey's footsteps, pursuing legislation that violates the rights of Americans and appears to be tone-deaf as far as being unconstitutional. Similar legislation in New York and New Jersey have been met with legal challenges and scrutiny. The governor of Maryland has probably already signed this bill into law once this video is uploaded. Maryland residents should be aware that these measures will come into effect on October 1st, 2023. It is important to note that individuals have the right to express their concerns and opinions to elected officials, and contacting the governor's office to express opposition to these measures is a valid and appropriate course of action. We'll provide a link to the governor's office in the description. It is paramount to exercise our Second Amendment rights as American citizens and to make our voices heard by elected officials. It is important to note, however, that we should be mindful of the potential consequences of our words and actions. While it may seem like our elected officials are listening, it is still our responsibility to hold them accountable and to ensure that they are representing our interests. As proponents of the Second Amendment, the Two-Way Report team provides informative content on issues related to gun rights and ownership. Ultimately, it is up to each of us to protect and defend these rights. Please subscribe to our channel so you're always updated on these issues. And regrettably, that's all the time we have for today. If you care about your Second Amendment rights, please smash that like button and share this video with your family and friends in Maryland so they're aware. Tap that notification bell too while you're at it. Thanks and have a good one.